Hello, this is Kyle from Pure Storage once again, and in the second part of our VMware Cloud Foundation and Equinix Metal technical demo video, we're going to show you how to commission an ESXi host for use in VMware Cloud Foundation. In the first step, we got our ESXi host entered into DNS and did some basic networking setup. And in this demo video, we're going to show you the remaining steps that need to be done prior to commissioning an ESXi host. It's worth noting that all of the steps I'm about to show you today can be automated through scripting, and many of these scripts will be available via Benjamin Jenkins at Equinix Metal's GitHub page. But for those of you who are curious or who perhaps need to know what changes need to happen, I'm going to show those here. The first step is that we've logged into the DCUI on our ESXi host, and we assign our management VLAN ID to that ESXi host here. Next, there is a private network which is deployed as part of the Equinix Metal deployment. We're going to go ahead and remove that as it is not needed for VMware Cloud Foundation host commissioning. So we remove the VM kernel NIC as well as the private network port NIC here. Next step is we're going to set up our NTP server. By default, this is turned off. So we're going to go ahead and start and stop it with the host and then specify our NTP server. And then we'll go ahead and start up that NTP service. Again, all these things are scriptable and can be automated. But again, just for those who are curious, these are the steps that our scripts will do. Our next step is we're going to enable our software ICSI adapter. We'll copy the ESXi host IQN, the ICSI IQN, and we will log into our hosted Pure Storage flash array. Again, this is an array that's hosted within Equinix Metal. I've already created the host object, so I'll go to my VCF-workload-01 host, and then I will add that IQN that I just copied. Note that the personality here is also set to ESXi. Now I'm going to go down to settings, and I'll grab one of my ICSI port IP addresses on the flash array, and we'll use that as a dynamic target for our ESXi host. So we enter in that ICSI IP address on our flash array. And one thing we'll do quickly here actually is we will add a couple of Pure Storage best practices. Again, this can all be automated, but just for completeness, I will show it here manually. We'll change our login timeout from 5 to 30, and then we will disable delayed awk. We can see there are our dynamic target discovered some static targets, and now ICSI has been successfully configured on our ESXi host. Last thing we need to do from a Pure Storage perspective is we will create a host group. I'm only doing this for a single ESXi host example, so these steps will need to be repeated for however many ESXi hosts you wish to add to your workload domain. So for this example, we've created our host group. We will add our single example ESXi host here. You'd obviously repeat this for additional hosts. And then we will connect this host group to our Pure Storage protocol endpoint for vVols usage. Now we'll go back over to the DCUI. We'll do a rescan just to make sure that all of our ports and everything else is correctly been scanned. Now we will go ahead and SSH to our ESXi host. There's a couple other minor things that we need to complete. Again, you will need to create an RSA key within Equinix Metal to get access to your ESXi host SSH at root. So the first thing we're going to do is we do need to enable root logon. SDDC Manager needs to be able to SSH to the ESXi host. So we do need to make a couple quick changes here. I'll highlight these. The first one is we need to change password authentication from no to yes. And then the second one is challenge response authentication. We need to change from no to yes. So we save that, then we restart our SSH service. And then finally, the other thing that we need to do, this is dependent on the version of VMware Cloud Foundation you're using, but we are going to update and upgrade this ESXi host to a different version of ESXi host, or of ESXi, and then reboot it so that we can have the correct version of ESXi to commission this host. Stepping to SDDC Manager, I've already made these entries, but we can see here's our VASA provider for our hosted Pure Storage flash array. What I grabbed here for the URL was simply the management IP address. for one of my controllers. You cannot use the virtual IP address, you have to use a controller IP. We've got a username and password, vvol container, and then our container type is ICSI here. I've also created an ICSI network pool, so I've got ICSI as well as vMotion IP addresses set aside for our ESXi hosts. And with that, I will go ahead and commission this host now. Put in the FQDN of my host. We are using vvols and ICSI, using my ICSI network pool, and then root password. Go ahead and add it, confirm the fingerprint, and then lastly, we'll validate that this host has everything set up correctly. Okay, with our host validated, we can go ahead and commission it, and that will bring it into our SDDC Manager inventory. Again, this needs to be repeated for at minimum 3 ESXi hosts to be able to deploy a workload domain. But with that, that's the end of this demo video. Please check the next one out to actually create a workload domain on Equinix Metal with VMware Cloud Foundation and Pure. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.